Welcome back to the shed. Today we're going to make a segmented bowl and we're going to make it out of valchromat. Here's the valchromat we've got to play with. I must say I rather like the red and yellow combination. We're back on the laptop looking at Woodturner Pro software. I thought it might be nice to get you in at the design stage. The base is 15mm thick and 100mm diameter. Let's add a new row and set it to 8mm thick, which is the same as the valchromat. If we change the display, we can see the segments. And this button shows the size of the glue line. We can then resize the segments as we like. We can resize the segments using the arrow keys on our keyboard. Here we've settled on a board width of 20mm and a glue line of about 13mm. In vessel view, we can see the segments. Obviously we're changing that to 42. One row doesn't make a bowl, so let's keep adding rows until we hit the biggest size our lathe can manage. That's about 300mm or close enough. This software lets us add colours too. Holding Control, we can select a bunch of them, right click and select a colour. To have the pattern repeat nicely, we can change this number to 21, which is half of 42. Let's select this lot and change the colour to yellow. It's all stripy now. This thing is going to look great. But just for fun, let's make a YouTube poll. Really? You chose blue and green? Okay, well, if you say so. So as I was saying, you can select the segments using Control and left click, change the colour to blue and change the yellow to green. Look at that, it's blue and green because my subscribers say so. Now the design is locked in, we can take a look at the plans that Woodturner Pro has for us. The plan says that row 1 is solid 100mm diameter and 15mm thick. This, however, has a diameter of 90mm and it's thicker than 15, but I'm sure it'll be fine. For the actual segments, the plan says the segments have a board width of 20mm. We can set the table saw fence to 20mm and start cutting our valchromat. Spot on. We're off to a good start. There's a bunch of blue sticks. And there's a bunch of green sticks. This is Pac-Man. Hello Sam, how you doing? And this plastic wedge will give us the 42 segments. The 42 segments on row 2 have an edge length of 8mm. To mark out the 8mm mark, we first need to cut this bit off. Measuring from that point, we can mark the length of the segment. That pencil mark is lined up with the blade, and a stop block is clamped into place. This stick doesn't have a name, but it does have 2 magnets. That should keep the segments away from the blade when we cut them. Look at that, the nameless stick works. But does this measure 8mm? That'll do. The blue ones are already cut, but there's plenty more to cut, so let's cut the green ones. 21 of each colour gives us a total of 42. Row 3 has an edge length of 9mm. The pencil mark is lined up with the blade just like last time, and the stop block can be adjusted too. Slide the blue stick along until it hits the stop block and make a cut. Does it measure 9mm? Well, it starts with a 9. Cutting these wedges is so repetitive that this video footage looks very familiar. The segments in row 4 measure 10mm. The segments in row 5 measure 11mm. The segments in row 6 measure 12mm. The segments in row 7 measure 13mm. The segments in row 8 measure 14mm. The segments in row 9 measure 15mm. The segments in row 10 measure 16mm. The segments in row 11 measure 17mm. The segments in row 12 measure 18mm. The segments in row 13 measure 19mm. The segments in row 14 measure 20mm. And the segments in row 15 measure 21mm. The segments in row 16 should measure 22mm, but we've run out of valchromat. That's quite lucky because we've run out of bowls to put them in. Before we glue this lot together, can you see this little bit that the saw missed? If we leave it there, it will create a gap between the segments, and that's not a good thing. It can be removed with some sanding. There are 15 rows of 42 segments, so only 630 to do. Of course, each segment has 2 edges, so we've actually got 1260 faces. Aren't numbers fun? The sanded segments are clamped in a line so we can add glue to all of them in one go. This glue up only took 5 minutes, but here are some of the highlights. The clamps came off. Wedges got glued. A ring was made. Any ring smaller than your hand can be clamped by using an elastic band. This ring is bigger than my hand, so we need a better solution. I mentioned this problem to a friend of mine, and he suggested that we use cable ties. Sid, you're a genius. So easy to use. The rings are dry, but they're not super flat. It's been a while, so let's do some sanding. I'm glad that's over with. Wait a minute, there's more. Okay, we're done. Look at that, it's a bunch of flat segmented rings. And I've already glued some together. What glue are we using? I'm glad you asked. We're using super glue. Controversial glue choice. Controversial or not, I think it's going to be fine. Anyway, I'm in charge around here, so that looks colourful, doesn't it? It could have been red and yellow. Just saying. Wait a second, we need to glue the block of ash onto the bottom. Where did I put that glue? Never mind, let's just tape it on. Look at that, it's on the lathe. While we're waiting for the masking tape to dry, let's turn the inside of the bowl. It's such a simple shape that all we need to do is cut in a straight line. Whoa, 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 whoa. Before we cut anything, let's get some dust collection sorted out. Valchromat is essentially coloured MDF, and it is going to turn to dust as soon as we turn it. Some of that dust is being sucked up. This thing should keep the rest of the dust out of my lungs. As you can see from this footage of my back, there isn't much to see here. Don't worry, I did manage to get out of the way for the outside cuts. I've switched to a square carbide bit and it's performing very well. Very well indeed. I think it's time for some more sanding. That's what 180 grit looks like. That's what 240 grit looks like. That's what 320 looks like. 400, 600, 800, 1000, 1200. The next step is to use some of this abrasive paste. I'm using True Grit, I believe. And then we're going to use Yorkshire Grit Fine Abrasive Paste, which is the white one. And finally, we're going to apply a nice layer of wax. That gets rubbed on and buffed off. Look at that! It's a blue and green segmented valchromat bowl with a twisting pattern. It's a snappy title if nothing else. Well, that was fun. Who knew that blue and green was going to be the popular choice? If you'd like to see the red and yellow one, tough luck. That's democracy for you. I'll talk to you next time.